Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 670. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. Today, Luis Gonçalves and I talk about his new book introducing the ADAPT methodology. We discuss why using a framework can help leaders stay relevant, all levels of leadership. Our conversation dovetails nicely into the Reread Saturday focus on project to product. There is a lot of synergy between the ideas of Kersten and Gonçalves. Luis's bio. Luis Gonçalves is an entrepreneur, bestseller author, and international keynote speaker. When consulting, he works exclusively with entrepreneurs, founders, and senior leaders on the implementation of his game-changing ADAPT methodology. By following the ADAPT methodology, executive leaders will be able to assess the 5 main pillars of their organization by identifying gaps that are required for them to succeed as modern digital leaders. He has been successfully involved in the software industry since 2003 and been on the Software Process and Measurement Cast a number of times. And his company blog, link in the show notes, is considered a must-read for everyone in the software development industry. Are you ready to adapt? It's time for the conversation. Luis Gonçalves, welcome back to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here again with you. It's always an honor to be here and talk to you and talk with your audience as well, or at least talk with you for your audience.
Yeah, it's a little bit asymmetric when it comes to the audience. They get their chance later on. It has been a few years. You are doing extraordinary things. We run into each other on the internet, whether it's Twitter or other places. But right now, you're rolling out something called ADAPT. Why don't you start with a little bit about what ADAPT is and why is this a groundbreaking approach?
Yeah. So before I start with ADAPT, let me explain why I started with that and what are basically the history behind. So some of you already know I started my career with agility in 2003, 2004 in Nokia, and during almost a decade, I work on that area. But then I realized that agility is great, but most of companies stick only to the teams, some of them going to the organization. But then I started to realize that is great, but bigger companies need more than just agility and transformation on the organizational side. A lot of people or a lot of companies are talking about digital transformation. And I kind of understood that agility and the organizational part, are not the only pieces that we require to help companies with the digital transformation. So then I came up with ADAPT. So because I really believe you cannot transform yourself to the digital era without thinking how to approach customers. So it's a completely different way. You cannot enter in the new digital age without data science and all the data knowledge that you have from your company and your customers. Then agility is the pillar, then product, or the product strategy, and the transformation is the organization. That's how I came with that. So approach, data, agility, product, and transformation. So I extended a little bit more what I've been doing during the last decade. And then I realized maybe that's a good, simple approach to help organizations. And that appeared last year during the pandemic part. So I was at home when we had a lockdown in Portugal, and I said, well, I had so many ideas. I'm closed at home. I cannot do anything. So what else should I do? So I started to write the book, ADAPT, and I put all these ideas that I had to help the companies into the paper. And then the book appeared, and that's it now. It's out in the market, and this is what I've been working during the last months with companies.
Before we dive into ADAPT a little bit, let's sort of explore the creativity or the unlocking of creativity that we potentially are seeing now that we're unwinding out of all of these lockdowns. You said you were at home, you had time, you created something new and different. Many times, whether it's organizations, teams, whatever level, we're booking and we're working, 60, 70 hours a week, and we don't get that time to actually think about and process information. How, I know the pandemic has been a horrible thing, and I've lost friends, and so I feel for it, but do you think that there might have been a silver lining?
Yeah, of course, it was an horrible situation. I lost family, so it was not a funny thing. But to be honest, as a society, I think society will come out a much better society. Okay, so I truly believe for us to have evolution, we need to have disruption. I think no system can evolve if there is no pressure, right? And in the COVID-19, I usually talk about it, and I even say it on my book. I truly believe that in 100 years, we will look at COVID-19 as we look now to Henry Ford and Ford. So what I mean is, Henry Ford, from my point of view, was like one of the big fathers of the industrial age. And I truly believe in 100 years, COVID-19 will be the biggest responsible for the digital era. We talk a lot about digital era nowadays, but I think only now we will start to see the potential that this age will bring to us. Completely new business models, completely new ideas. So, of course, we lost many people, millions of people all over the world. But as a society, I think we will come up stronger and better equipped than we were before.
Certainly hope so. Coming back to adapt, why do you think leaders actually need support, need frameworks like adapt to to evolve toward a digital sort of product world?
That's a damn good question. I think there are two things why frameworks like adapt can be very successful. First of all, leaders need help because I usually talk about it. One of the biggest issues that leaders have, and this was taught with one of my old bosses, and now is a very successful leader, that he said to me, one of our biggest problems or biggest challenges as it's that we are 50, 60 years old. And now I have a big problem because everything what I did in the past that led me to be in this position, a CEO of a very big company, it's not the same that will help me to drive the company further, right? So what I need to do is I need to relearn a lot of the theories and the things that I did in the past, because what worked in the past, it's not what will work in the future. So I think these big frameworks like adapt will help the mindset of the people, not just adapt itself, but the implementation. Okay, so the implementation of these frameworks with the coaching of executives will help them. And then second of all, I think these methodologies are useful for executives because executives, they need a concrete approach. They need a roadmap. They need to understand what will happen to their organizations. They need to understand what are the steps so that they can prepare themselves and prepare the entire organization to drive the change. And this is one of the reasons why I believe that so many executives do not like many of the agile coaches out there, because I was myself an agile coach, and I was one of those that say, oh, we don't know exactly how it goes. We just need to do continuous improvement and what's going on and then do a retrospective and then improve. So there was no concrete outcome. And that's very, very strange for an executive. So to summarize, first, the mindset, it's very different. So they need to relearn how to design organizations. And second, Second of all, frameworks like Adapt, I think, are pretty good because they help executives to visualize the steps that needs to be taken in order to change and adapt their organizations.
The 5 pillars of Adapt. Why did you pick those 5 pillars? Were there others in the running, perhaps?
Yeah, so I choose 5 pillars because, to be honest, I was playing around a little bit with the name, right? So Adapt was a good name because everyone was talking about adapting now to the digital age and how are we going to adapt the society to a post-COVID-19, right? So I was playing a lot with those 5 pillars. And those pillars are, like I said, approach, because I think it's very, very important. A lot of people is talking about digital marketing, but I don't think many people understand the need or the potential of digital marketing. A lot of people use digital marketing as a tool because, now we need to use digital marketing. But in reality, it's much more stronger than that. The whole entire approach, how we talk with customers, it's completely different than before. Before, we were just bombarding people with ads on TV, on the newspapers, on radio. But now customer behavior changed. So now if you, for example, take your example, if you go and you want to buy a car, you go to the shop, most probably you know more about the car than the guy that is selling you the car. So the customer behavior changed completely. So now we need to go into an era where we need to educate the customers, we need to inspire the customers, and that's how we get their trust. So, and to do that, we really need to have a completely approach on the content side, on the education, on the inspiration. So that was the first pillar. And I really put that pillar there because the Evolution for All, my company, grew quite a lot using a lot of that pillar. So we do a lot of content creation. The books are examples of that, the podcast that is coming out, etc. So people come to us through the content, through the inspiration, through the education, right? So that's a game changer. The second pillar is data. So data is everywhere. So in not only to understand the customers, but to understand as well your own operations. So it's huge. Nowadays, data science is huge, and companies are sitting in huge amount of data that most of them still don't do anything with it. But actually, if you start taking a look into the data that you have in your company, you will be able to see how your customers behave, what they like, they don't like. And with that, actually, you can even start building new products, new services, and even new business models. So not taking into consideration that information is a waste of time. Third pillar, agility. Well, that's the one that is the most basic one, right? So if you don't have an agile organization nowadays, it will be pretty difficult to do anything. Then the fourth pillar is product, but more on the digital strategy, on the product digital strategy part, because I truly believe, and this is a very common mistake, at least in Portugal, in Germany, where I work quite a lot. People want to do a transformation, but they keep the same business model. And I really think that is one of the big things that you need to take a look into it. If you want to adapt yourself, your business to the digital era, business model most probably is one of the things that will change tremendously. So if you don't have a pretty solid strategy for your product, most probably you will not survive. And the last one is the transformation pillar. So here, I truly believe that organizations are optimized still for cost reduction. Why? Because as I started in the beginning of this podcast, I truly believe that organizations are still designed as they were designed 100 years ago. If you take a look, Henry Ford and the other gentlemen that created the principles of industrial era created a type of organization that we still use in today's world. So optimize a lot for cost reduction, produce as much as you can with the little as little errors and cheaper as you can. But in today's world, I truly believe the equation is different. So we want to optimize companies for speed, reduction of time to market. So we want to deliver digital products in most of the cases. So we need to optimize our companies to speed, time to market reduction. And that implies that your entire organization is designed most probably around value streams, revenue streams, or user experience, customer experience, whatever the company decides to, but needs to be optimized for speed. And that will dramatically change the way how your organization is designed. And that's how it's why the transformation pillar is there. It's there to help organizations to design a company optimized for speed.
I understand the need for focusing on whether it's value stream, revenue stream, the long view of product, from inception all the way to actual customers. Most of, or not most of, but a large portion of the people that I deal with don't live on the value chain. They are support groups. They are the groups that are there to perhaps enable the value chain. I don't see how they can optimize or can move away easily from optimizing for cost because they are not generating revenue. They are not. There might even be, unfortunately, candidates for outsourcing. They're not that core part of the business. Does ADAPT address how to handle things that aren't on the value stream?
Well, it's a really good question. Last week, I had a executive of a bank in Saudi that asked me, Louis, so you are always talking about product organization, value streams, and so on. So can you please suggest a prototype of an organization where you could apply your ideas here? And the reality is ADAPT, you can implement ADAPT, but it does not mean that your entire organization will change to speed and drop the cost, the optimization for cost, right? So what I always suggest more and more is you need to take a look into your organization. And in this case, it was a bank. So I still look at bank in two different pieces. One piece is the bank operations. Imagine procurement, auditing, legal, HR, finance, all the normal traditional parts. I don't see any problem in keeping those as they are. Where we can change is on the digital part, where we are developing really software products, right? So where we are creating the business enablers for the bank. On that side, then we reorg completely the organization. So I'm very radical on this approach because I think, and this is actually what I'm suggesting more and more to executives, I really think, and now some listeners will kill me, but I really believe that, for example, I don't have an IT organization, a CIO or CTO. I substitute that for a product management organization, and under the product with a chief product officer, for example, and under that organization, we create products completely focused on the customer and end to end with all the skill sets. Okay. And what we do is we grow organically. As soon as we need another product, we create another organization, which is a startup or a product, whatever you want to call it, under the product development department with all the skills there, right? And those clusters are 15, 20, 25 people, not more. And then all those guys report to the head of the product. So we kill CIOs, CTOs, etc. Because everyone is a product, and everyone, even if it's UX, QA, developer, architect, whatever, is on this cluster and reports to the bigger guy, the head. And then you can replicate over and over and over. Then people might think, but then how are you going to align everyone? And then you start using community of practices, and basically you can align your entire company with communities of practice on all different functional areas of your company. So to answer your question, I always divide the company, or not always, but most of the cases, we divide the company in two areas: the digital delivery part and the support, operational support part. In the operational support part, I don't see anything bad to keep as we had it before, but the digital part, that's where we are going to see the big change. But an important thing is, usually we always help organizations with the OKRs. So even if they are different parts of the organization, the digital part feeds the other part of the operational part with objective and key results, so that everyone, even if they are not really working as the same organization, they can fulfill the objectives to support the other side of the organization. That's how we usually operate.
When you go down that path, how does one determine whether or not any individual product is successful?
So if I understood correctly, you are asking me how we validate if the product is successful. Usually the project, when we start when we start the product, there is always an idea, a small business plan, a business model canvas to that problem, to that product, and there is always some assumption, right? Usually 2 to 3 years. And if after 2 or 3 years, or even less, so if you have a lot of feedback from the market that this product is not really helping your company to go on the direction where you want to go, you can simply kill it. But usually we have metrics, how they believe this product is successful, what this product needs to bring to the business, what are the ideas, what are the assumptions, and basically you can validate this product in a very fast, quick way. The good thing of having this setup is every 3 months we can always align and see if the product is going on the right direction, because we work with OKRs usually with the companies, and usually it's a cadence of 3 months. So every 3 months you can reflect if the product is going on the right direction. If something happens and you think that it will not work, you can simply kill and distribute the people for other problems that are more strategical. So one very good example how this can be super fast and iterative. One of my customers last year was preparing a feature where you could go to the restaurant and you could split the bill with a QR code or simply with all your friends. But surprise, surprise, that feature was planned to be developed, or that product was supposed to be developed during the time when pandemic started. So
not many times people going out to restaurants together.
Right. So it doesn't make much sense to put the effort on that when no one is going out because everyone is in lockdown. So what they did was they completely killed that product for the time being, and they associate the people to another product where they wanted to develop a complete solution for the PlayStation Store. And what happened, of course, the PlayStation Store product exploded because everyone was stuck at home. So they started to use, and basically just because of this small shift, they were able to double the customer base of the bank. Was really crazy, right? So this flexibility helps you tremendously to shift quickly the company to where the market wants you to go. And I think this is the piece that was missing on the Agile world. So a lot of companies were talking about agility, Scrum, Kanban, Agile on the team level. They were delivering fantastic things. But the company, the structure did not support this flexibility. And I think this could be a next step to enable the entire enterprise agility part.
Before we start to wrap, I do have one question that's slightly off the adapt path. And I'd like to pick your brains because you have a lot of experience. You see a lot of different places, obviously different places than I do. We here in the States and in Canada, where I do a lot of my work, are seeing applications, people going into hybrid work environments where some people come into the office, others never come back into the office. The problem is, at least on the surface, very little of the relationship management, very little of the HR has changed. I suspect that those people that are working remotely, and remotely most of the time, are going to have a significant problem in terms of promotions and building relationships on the teams when other people are in the office. What are you seeing in Europe?
Well, that's an awesome one. You touch on the point of the HR part. That, to be honest, I haven't thought on that part before, and so thank you for that part, because I was really thinking more on the operational part, how companies should operate, and what is my opinion about it. But actually, you are completely right, because most of the HR procedures are still evaluating a lot of individual contributions, etc., etc. So actually, when you are completely out of your office and you are alone on your own, it can be much trickier. But let me start from ideas of companies that I see here in Portugal and in Germany that I saw that I think they are really on the good direction. A lot of the companies, they are giving the choice to the employees where they want to work, if they want to work at home or if they want to go back to the office. What is happening is a lot of the workers are not choosing 100% going back, and they are not choosing 100% home. So they are choosing an hybrid mode. But that has an impact on the company, even on the office part. So what I see a lot of companies doing is they are preparing their offices to have an office more optimized for workshop and relationship management. So not so much on the design of having normal tasks and having a team room, but they are really changing companies to have more brainstorming sessions and more collaborative work, because they say we don't want to force people to come to the office at the same time, but once or twice a month, we really want them to come together so that they can build relationships. And for that, they build a different type of office. This is already happening here. So that being said, I really believe, and I don't want to go into the solution mode because it's a very complex topic, but I think HR should really change their procedures, not so much to evaluate the people. I don't know how it is in US, but in Europe, there's still a culture that if you are at the office, you are working. If you are at home, you are not working. So, and a lot of HR procedures, and this is a trust issue, in my opinion, right? So just if you are at office, like in Portugal, we came to the office at 8 o'clock if needed, but we spend 2 hours drinking coffee. We are not producing anything. And then we stay until 7 in the evening, but we are in the office. So, and some people that come at 8 and start to work at 8 and goes at 5, they are not really nicely seen. They say, oh, this guy is going home too early, but in the reality produce more than other people. But what I want to say is HR, I think, needs to change their procedures to evaluate people, from my point of view, not so much on the individual level, but more on the team level. That's my opinion. And not so much on the individual outcome, but more on the team's product outcome, right? If you want to evaluate a person or a team, you should see what these people are doing for the business and what is the impact they are bringing to the business. I think this is the right way to measure. And it's a little bit what OKR say, right? OKR says that you should not measure output, but you should measure outcome. So I think HR should change the practices a bit on that direction as well. Stop changing or stop measuring people on the output and starting measuring people on outcomes. Doesn't matter if you go to 10 trainings, your negotiation skills gets better. If you are a nicer guy or a more social guy, if the business doesn't have any impact, right? So I think that is one of the, or the biggest things that I see that HR should take a look on the evaluation part. Did I answer your question?
Oh, absolutely. Luis, this has been fantastic. If you woke up tomorrow morning, somebody gave you a magic wand and your caffeinated beverage of choice, coffee it sounds like, and said you had the power to change any 2 things that affect how organizations deliver value, what would those 2 things be and why?
One of the things that I see that is one of the biggest problems is arrogance. Okay? Because a lot of people do not want to change on the higher positions. Okay? People do not want to change because they believe they know everything. So they don't want to change. And because a little bit of what I said previously on this episode, that they were very successful in the past. So they believe they are right. So a little bit of humbleness. That's one. And the second one is we need more leaders in the organization and less managers. Let me explain why. Because I'm trying to change a little bit the panorama here in Portugal, but the biggest challenge that I'm facing is everyone that is in charge of changing organizations, they are managers. And managers are quite different than leaders. And I love to give the example of Steve Jobs and Tim Cook, right? Steve Jobs was a leader, an innovator, a crazy guy that drove Apple, wherever he is now. Tim is a fantastic COO. He's a great guy on the operations. He's a great manager. He knows how to optimize costs. He's great. But in my point of view, he's not a great visionary. He's not a great leader. He's not a crazy guy. And I think this is the problem of many of our organizations. We put a lot of managers into positions that require leadership and innovation. And this is a skill set that is completely different. A guy that manages an organization is there to optimize costs, to reduce the mistakes, to standardize everything. A leader is a guy that wants variation, wants to try new things. And of course, by trying new things, we will make a lot of mistakes. So that's what I would like to see. First, a little bit more of humbleness on some of our leaders. And second, to get more leaders into organizations. I think if we would have these two things, a lot of things would happen in our organizations and many more nicer changes would happen.
Super. Makes sense. How would people continue the conversation? How would they find you, your company, Evolution for All, on the internet?
So the easiest one is LinkedIn. So Luís Gonçalves, Evolution for All. It's there. Adaptmethodology.com is the website of the whole entire ecosystem. So LinkedIn, Luís Gonçalves Evolution for All, and adaptmethodology.com. They are the easiest and I think the most important parts where you can get me.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Someday I would like to come back and talk OKRs because people are doing what they do with all interesting innovations, and that's trying to take it back to what they're used to. And I think they're killing OKRs pretty quickly, making it
completely.
So I'd love to have another conversation on that front. But in the interim,
let's have it.
Okay. As you know, you've provided some really intense, interesting information. You've been seeing me jumping in, writing notes as I've gone. Also noting explicit time so I can go back and re-listen myself. So as a thank you, the platform's yours for you to promote anything that you'd like for 2 to 3 minutes.
So I think the most I like to provide value, not ask much. But so on that sense, if you guys go to adaptmethodology.com, you can download the book for free, the PDF. And I think downloading the book and provide me some feedback, it would be super awesome because I intend to continue to write more books. So more feedback is nicer to for me. And there is a scorecard. I think that's interesting as well on the adaptmethodology.com. There's a scorecard where basically you can measure all these 5 pillars: the approach, data, agility, product, and transformation. And you get a completely report with your score and some suggestions of improvement or areas of your company that you could take a look to improve. I think that's very, very useful. I have been getting a lot of really feedback. Of course, it's not a super detailed report, but it's some nice questions. There are 30 questions, 5 for each pillar. So it's some nice questions for you to start thinking about these topics. I will usually use these questions when I do a workshop, today's workshop with executives, and they say, interesting, I never thought about it. So I think it could be interesting. So adaptmethodology.com, you have the book there, you have the scorecard there, and I think if you are interested, it's a good starting point.
Luis Gonçalves, thank you for coming and spending time with the Software Process and Measurement Cast listeners.
Thank you, Tom. It was a pleasure, and all the best for you and for the listeners. Thank you so much.
In upcoming events, the Agile Online Summit is nearly here. It will be here October 25th through the 27th. Tom Henriksen delivers one of the most innovative online conferences. This year he is up the bar again. While you can attend the summit for free, there are a number of innovative options to learn even more from the summit. The early bird pricing on those options is nearly over. Link in the show notes. Be there. Whether you're going for free or you're going for some of the special options. In Reread Saturday News, Chapter 1 begins Part 1 of Project to Product. There are 3 parts of the book, by the way. This part of the book introduces the flow framework, the core of the book. The graphic showing the whole model is the first thing you see when you open this part of the book, which anchors the importance of the model for the rest of the book. Link in the show notes to this week's and last week's installment, and a link in the show notes to buy a copy of the book so you can read along. In the next Software Process and Measurement Cast, an essay titled, What is Agile? There are a few things that just need to be said. One of which is just because you're doing ceremonies doesn't make you agile, and might even make you fragile. In addition, Susan Parente will bring her I'm Not a Scrumdimentalist column to the podcast. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?